Toastmasters.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So our President Sean picked a very thought-provoking topic for today, the best lesson I ever learned. And I'm not sure about the best lesson, but my question for you all is, what's the most famous lesson you ever learned? I'll let you think about it for a second. No takers? Go ahead.
Being on time.
Being on time. That's a great lesson. And one I know several of, Granville of us and others in the room definitely appreciate that, as well as President Sean. I think an even more famous lesson is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We all learn it from when we're little kids. And so I'll try to apply that lesson today. Do unto you all as I would have you do unto me. Hopefully deliver an interesting speech in no more than 7 minutes. So this one's about lessons, and I've organized the speech around 3 kinds of lessons. So planned lessons, accidental lessons, and finally lessons that we learn the hard way. So what do I mean by a planned lesson? A planned lesson is when you take a class, for example. And I'm not talking about a class that your parents or some other adult authority force you to take against your will. When you actually enroll for a class or pay for a class yourself, you're planning to do it. And these are some of the best lessons you can get. A planned lesson you want to learn can be very enlightening. In addition to a class, a planned lesson could also be a sermon, for example. A planned lesson that happens when you go to church. So nobody's perfect, though. We have a lot going on in our lives. Sometimes it's very difficult to unplug from the world and really listen to the preacher or the rabbi or the imam and absorb what they have to say. As a child, I often ran into trouble after church when my dad would quiz us, and what was the sermon about? Often would have to resort to confabulating to answer that question. Other times, though, you're ready to focus. Sometimes you're looking for an opportunity to think about anything other than work or your family life and can really focus on what the preacher or rabbi has to say. And this is when you get a planned lesson at its finest. So many of these planned lessons stick with you, but many of the time, and frankly, they don't. You plan to learn, you take it in, but if you don't go out and live it or do it, it can go by the wayside as you go on to learn other things. Accidental lessons sometimes do stick with you a little bit more than a planned lesson. So an accidental lesson is you didn't sign up for a class, you didn't open a textbook, you just happened to learn something. Everybody's heard the phrase, you learn something new every day. This can only be possible because there are so many accidental lessons in our life. So to illustrate, I'll make this an interactive section. My goal is to give you all an accidental lesson. You didn't plan to learn anything necessarily, but I'm going to make sure you all do. I'll start with, raise your hand if you know or knew already that Baltimore is known as the city of firsts. Oh, you're making it easy on me. I'm done. Everybody got a lesson. Yeah, I got a list here, 8 pages long of all the firsts that have happened in Baltimore, including birthplace of the Star-Spangled Banner, the first sugar refinery in the U.S., the first publicly supported high school for girls, and it goes on and on. So if you want a longer list of accidental lessons, come see me after the meeting. So finally, we get to the lessons we learn the hard way. Do another raise your hand. If you've ever been behind the wheel of a car when it's been hydroplaning. It's an appropriate question for a day like today. Okay, so this supports my theory that I think as many as 70 to 80% of people learn that lesson the hard way. The people who teach us how to drive can tell us until they're blue in the face that when it's raining, you need to slow down or your car could hydroplane, but we just don't seem to put 2 and 2 together until that actually happens to us. And if we're lucky, we just get the you-know-what scared out of us, but we learn that lesson the hard way without damaging ourselves or others, and sometimes we're not so lucky. I think if there were a way to teach student drivers this lesson the hard way in a safe way during driving school, that would make the world a much better place. If you could somehow simulate hydroplaning in a safe way while people are learning to drive, scare them, but keep them safe. If I figure out a way to do it, I'll let you know. Kids learn a lot of things the hard way too. My daughter learned yesterday, actually, the hard way, how to get off the couch feet first instead of head first. And I learned a lesson the hard way too, not to turn my back on a 1-year-old for too long. And adults learn things the hard way also. Anyone who has themselves or ever had a loved one go through a 12-step program knows the significance of rock bottom to those programs. And rock bottom is a place where you've hit such a low point that you're ready to learn a new way of living in a way that you've never been open to before. Stanley Lindquist, who was a World War II hero and a pioneer psychologist, said the following about rock bottom. God allows us to experience the low points of life in order to teach us lessons we could not learn in any other way. The way we learn those lessons is not to deny the feelings, but to find the meanings underlying them. So to me, that really sums up the potential that learning the lessons the hard way has for us in life. When we learn the easy way, we may feel enlightened at first, but then we forget. We never internalize the lesson. But the lessons that we learn the hard way stick with us and really connect us to the rest of humankind. So in summary, life would be a truly dreary experience if it weren't full of lessons. Some of them planned, some of them accidental, and some of them, more often than we would like, probably learned the hard way. So keep your heart and your mind open to lessons of all three kinds, and remember to try to learn something new every day.